A key pillar of Sony's PlayStation 5 strategy during this console generation was to make a meaningful investment into the audio side of things, that being the acquisition of Audiokinetic in 2019, designing the Tempest 3D Audiotech Engine for PS5, offering HRTF profiles in the console settings for a more tailored audio experience, then adding software updates for 3D audio via TV speakers, and finally supporting Dolby Atmos. On day one, Sony launched a range of accessories, and the Pulse 3D wireless headset was one of them. A more mid-range level headset that's meant to match the design language of the console. It may not have been the best option on the market, but it was certainly a serviceable one. Fast forward a few years, and now Sony has acquired the premium headset manufacturer Audeze, known for utilizing planar magnetic drivers in their range of products. With the new Pulse Elite and the Pulse Explorer, Sony is offering two more headset options that have effectively priced down planar magnetic technology in what was normally reserved to higher-end products. And if you're more into the over-ear style headphones, then that's where the Pulse Elite steps in. Inside the box, you'll find this handy infographic that breaks down your button layout and the simple sync process for the USB dongle and smartphones. Beyond that is the USB dongle itself, called the PlayStation Link adapter. And then there's the Pulse Elite. Underneath the box mold of the headset, you'll find the documentation, and you'll also find your supplied USB-A to USB-C cable. You'll also find your paperwork for setting up the charging dock, because the Pulse Elite does come with a fairly simple version of that. You'd screw the mounting bracket into where you want the dock to be, and you'd hook it on that way. We'll talk more about that later. Looking closer at the Pulse Elite, you'll see that it does look quite similar to the standard Pulse. On your right side, underneath, is where the volume rocker is, and a USB-C port for charging or updating the software. There's also a 3.5mm port for a wired connection, and then the power sync button. On the left, you'll see some raised PlayStation button icons on the tip of the mic. These are so you can easily pull out the microphone closer to your mouth. The mic position is easily adjustable and stays where you set it without too much give. And then on the back of the mic, so this would be facing toward you when wearing the headphones, is where the manual mute button is. Now let's talk about sound quality, which, full disclosure, I think it's really important to break down my background on a topic like this, where I'm not an expert, not an audiophile, I don't pretend to be, and so I'm someone that can usually tell when something sounds very good, very bad, or just okay. And as far as breaking down the minute differences between those different audio experiences on different headphones, I usually don't have an ear for that kind of thing. So if you fall in that same category, then you might find this perspective interesting, in that I was walking into this headset thinking that I would find that it sounds very good, but maybe not being able to tell the difference all that much compared to what I was used to so far, which, going back to the PS5 launch, I was using Sony's Pulse 3D for quite a bit. It was serviceable, like we said. Not a mind-blowing experience, and it kind of goes back to the early 3D audio games for PlayStation 5, where that's something the studio can support, and you can use any headphones to utilize 3D audio, but at the time that experience was very hit or miss, as in some games did have that locality and presence that was very engaging, and then other games maybe not so much, so it didn't really make a massive difference, and it didn't feel very game-changing for the years that followed for the PlayStation 5. I eventually upgraded to Sony's InZone H9 when they launched those lineup of headphones, which that is a pretty big price jump, going from 100 to 300 USD, and understandably you were getting some nicer things on those headphones. They felt a lot more comfortable, the battery life was greater, you had noise canceling, and so that was something where, as far as the sound quality also goes, they did sound louder, there was a deeper, richer bass, but that didn't really change my 3D audio experience. Now, getting into these, it was something where I did initially find they sounded very good, but it wasn't until I started playing a lot of different games and benchmarking these different scenarios where I was trying to see if the locality and presence would change for me. It actually did. And it was something where I didn't notice that, though, too much until I really did start exchanging headphones in the moment to see how they would sound, and that was something where I noticed the Pulse 3D. It does sound the most flat, so it's not exactly the most transformative experience, but something where by the time I swapped over to the InZone H9, that was still kind of what I was always used to. It was louder, had a deeper bass, but going over to the Pulse Elite, The locality and presence absolutely made a meaningful difference, which kind of dials back to the one difference with these headphones versus the other two or most other headphones on the market, which is that they do have magnetic planar drivers. Now, again, not really an expert. We can't exactly go into the details of what makes them so great, but generally speaking, these will have less distortion, more accurate resolution at higher volumes, more accurate sound locality, apparently deeper bass. That didn't seem to be the case for me. It didn't seem like these produced the same bass level as, say, the InZone H9. Even if I were to adjust this on a software level with the EQ presets from the PlayStation 5 Control Center, that really wasn't the experience I was having. But locality was certainly there in a way that I had not experienced just yet with those other two headphones, or really any others that I would test on PlayStation 5 thus far. Same for the Pulse Explorer, which we will talk about in a separate review. But that was really the one thing that surprised me the most, is that it was there. I could tell the difference, and it was meaningful to a point where even though I've got the H9, these $300 headphones, I now am going to feel more inclined to maybe start using the Pulse Elite versus the H9.
Seize the day, Spider-Man.
All right, let's do some voice chat testing and comparisons, starting off with the standard Pulse 3D wireless headset. Right now I've got two consoles right near each other. I'm just in a party with myself, and we're capturing off the console that is receiving the voice chat over PSN from the other console. That way it's somewhat representative of what your friends are going to hear as far as voice chat quality goes. And we'll also see how well these headsets can suppress background noise. So we're just going to do a simple test of putting a controller up and down off the desk. All right, now we're moving on to the Pulse Elite with the mic boom not pulled out just yet, but this is how it sounds, and you can already get an idea of how much better this will or will not sound compared to Sony's standard $100 headset. Now we'll also pull out the boom mic and see how that sounds as we're doing it. You can obviously adjust it as you need to, bringing it closer or further away, but then you can let it go, and this is how that's going to sound when you pull the mic boom out to have it closer to your mouth. But yeah, this is how it sounds so far, and we'll do a quick little, not quite a drop test, but picking the controller up and down. Now here is the chat quality of the Pulse Explorer, and not exactly sure what to expect here. I've not actually heard what it sounds like just yet, so this will be interesting to record this bit of footage right now and then throw it into post and get an idea of exactly how good or bad these are going to sound relative to the more over-ear headphones that are a lot more common in the gaming space, right? Having in-ear headphones is not nearly as common, which makes the Pulse Explorer a little bit more unique in the sense that it's an option for people that prefer these kind of headphones, and also having the utility of using these headphones on other devices. But you can get a sense of how these sound. Also, if somebody tries to go for adjusting the volume on these, and if that's going to make any sort of meaningful difference into the audio quality, we'll do the pickup test. Now, as a final baseline, let's look at the Sony InZone H9, which is a more premium on-paper headset that you might also be looking at if you're planning on staying within the Sony lineup of either PlayStation products or Sony. Then here are four things to consider when you look at all the voice chat options. But this is a very nice premium headset. I've been using it for about a little over a year now. It's been my daily driver up until testing the Explorer and the Elite. But this is something where you're also getting proper active noise cancellation, which it is on right now. If you do leave it on, it reduces battery life by about 20%. It's got the boom mic, by the way, so if I do lift that up, it actually automatically mutes on PS5, which is a very handy feature. But as far as the wearer for the noise cancellation, this is like a night and day difference. It's much more it's much better at actually keeping out background noise for the wearer compared to the AI software-driven noise cancellation and noise removal of the Elite and the Explorer. But for somebody on the other end, let's see how that sounds for our pickup and drop test with a controller on a desk. So there you have it. decide for yourself which one of those four sounds good to you, and what you would value most when you consider what your friends are going to have to deal with on PlayStation Network. Now, what about comfort and overall build quality? Well, I can safely say these are a lot more comfortable than really a lot of other headsets I've tried over the years, but more so if you are coming from a Pulse 3D, or if that was always your problem with the Pulse 3D, is that they're simply too uncomfortable after, say, 30 minutes to an hour because, and this does depend greatly on, say, the size of somebody's head, but it's a matter of them applying too much pressure to your head. So you will be delighted to know that they did try to address those concerns with the Elite, where the plastic arm here does swoop over and around the can before making a connection. The actual can itself has a lot more open give to it, and then actually pulling apart the cans to put on the headset, there's just a lot more give to it, a lot more flex, and so there is a much greater alleviation of pressure. And then there's also the actual cushions itself, which it's a very nice plush material, so all around it should be a lot better for you if you did have a problem with the Pulse 3D. Having said that, however, it is something where build quality, about the same. It's not like it's that much more premium feeling. It feels about the same as the Pulse 3D. If anything, my concern item would be maybe how the plastic arm where it swoops around, it's a very thin material, so it's probably going to be more susceptible to breaking if you do happen to drop these on a hard surface, or maybe something where you sit on them by accident, but as long as you're a little bit mindful of that, it shouldn't be a problem. But that, and also the actual faux material itself, where because it's covering more surface area around the can, when you go to take it off, you're touching it more often, you're getting your oily fingerprints on it. Might not hold up long term, but also when you go to pry and pull the headset off, it's simply a matter of you pulling the material. And I had this problem with the Pulse 3D where the material did come undone from the plastic housing, and you could sometimes tuck it back in there, but you kind of want to avoid that issue, right? So, because once it's out, it's out. And with this, I feel more inclined to not touch the material at all and instead grab from the plastic arms, which it's clearly not designed in a way where you should be grabbing it like that. Not to say that's a big concern item, but it's just something where I don't want to grab it like that over a number of different cycles long term. So reliability wise, I'm sure it's fine, but you might want to just be a bit careful with that. Now, as far as battery life is concerned, Sony claims 30 hours, which is a sizable jump from the Pulse 3D's 12 hours. So again, if you're coming from the Pulse 3D, this is going to feel like a big upgrade, but comparing it to other headsets in the same price range, it's about the same, so 30 hours. Some can go up to 35, 40 hours. In my experience for the Pulse Elite, it's something where tracking 5 different gaming sessions that were quite long, it came out to about 26 hours, mixed use of sometimes using a mic, sometimes not. There was another instance where I let it sit for as long as possible, idle on a game, no mic. That was pretty much about 30 hours. So it's going to depend, obviously, but if you're somebody where you can't leave this on a charging dock, which the Elite again does come with, then you can probably get away with letting this sit for a long time before have to really worrying about charging. Sony does also say that there is quick charging, to where if you plug it in for 5 minutes, you're going to get at least 1 bar back, which will be enough to help you finish that existing gaming session that you were currently in the middle of. So I would say battery life is probably going to serve most needs, but on the spectrum of what's out there, it is on the lower end. Some headphones do go beyond 35 plus hours. Other very important items to mention here is that you can mute from the controller, so that's great. Another huge bonus from the Pulse 3D, where that was in conflict with having to use the manual mute switch on the Pulse 3D. You don't have to do that with the Elite. You can mute on a software level from the DualSense. That is great, especially because the mute location on the actual Elite itself, again, facing towards you with the mic pullout, just kind of a weird, awkward spot, so much better to use it from the DualSense. The included charging dock is a really nice bonus, so there is a charging receiver on the top of the headset. If you can find a spot to install this, then it's a simple dock pickup solution. You're always going to be charged. You'll never have to worry about this thing running out of juice. The only problem is that you do have to find a good spot for actually mounting the bracket and then having to run the USB-C cord down, so you'll have an exposed cable. Might not be the easiest thing to manage if you're trying to avoid having an exposed cable, but if you can make it work, then it is certainly worth setting up. Now, we should also mention PlayStation Link, Sony's new wireless protocol. Right now, it's only available on the Pulse Elite and the Pulse Explorer, but the idea here is to pick up a second PlayStation Link adapter and connect that to your computer, and then you can have dual device connectivity seamlessly. You can also connect to your smartphone via Bluetooth and even accept a phone call while you're playing a game, and that does actually work quite well. It's a lot more handy than I thought it would be. And then there's also the PlayStation Portal. That requires PlayStation Link, so your only wireless headset options there would be the Pulse Elite or the Pulse Explorer, and if you do happen to have a Portal, then you'd be able to connect and use it with that. And it does work very well with no visible latency. So closing thoughts on the Pulse Elite. I think this is a very compelling option in the price range that it's in, not just for somebody that's coming from a Pulse 3D or considering buying one, but maybe even somebody that has a similarly priced headset or maybe something that's a step above this on paper, because it really does come down to the planar magnetic drivers. From top to bottom, the headset has a lot of good things going for it, but even to somebody like me that tends to be a bit more aloof with understanding and even recognizing the minute differences between sounds in various different headphones, it really did stand out in a meaningful way to where there was a greater sense of presence and locality across all these games. And so it really is making me reconsider what headset I will use as a daily driver when I'm playing games on PlayStation 5. I will maybe start using this a lot more often than my double MSRP Sony InZone H9, which does have a greater battery life. It has proper noise cancellation. It feels a little bit more comfortable than this, but the trade-off there is worth it to possibly start playing games with these more often than, say, that headset. So it really is, on paper, a very compelling buy for really any PlayStation 5 owner. So if you can get the mileage out of it with maybe other devices, your smartphone, a PlayStation Portal, then it is really something worth looking at. But having said all that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this useful, and I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.